Welcome inside the Fantasy Stock Exchange. Tyler and Bush coming at you with our Sunday recap show. This is our rapid reaction. We just watched the games, the early morning slate and the mid-afternoon slate, and we're going to kind of just be going off the cuff, what we saw, what we kind of observed in the box scores, notable injuries, all that kind of stuff. So, Tyler, how you doing?
Yeah, great. It's 7:45 here on Sunday, so please don't get mad at me for not talking about the Cowboys till like the very end of this video and then shitting on them. I feel great. My Dolphins lost. I'm going to get very much used to that this year. I'm hoping we lose every game except one, just to, do that. Get the first pick and get like the Penny Sewell guy out of Oregon. Let's go. Let's roll.
All right. So before we get into the first game, we're going to hit the intro, and then we're going to see you guys on the other side. All right. So the first game we have up queued up here is the Seahawks versus the Falcons. The Seahawks came away with this one 38-25. I think the big story in this one has to be Russell Wilson. 31 of 35 passing, 322 and 4 touchdowns.
Yeah.
The dude's a fucking stud.
Yeah, he was ridiculous. I mean, we knew this was going to happen. This is going to happen to every team that plays Atlanta. Fantasy owners, please take note. You can start guys like Jimmy G and Kirk Cousins because they're going to put on an absolute clinic because the Falcons defense is not good. We're seeing guys like David Moore fucking run all over this team. It was just a dominant performance by the offense as a whole. And then back into the game, you're going to get your Matt Ryan garbage time finished with most passing yards for the day and for the week so far. I mean, Matt Ryan's been fantastic when it comes to garbage time. You can always depend on him for that. And my MVP candidate for this upcoming year, Russell Wilson, looked magical, and I'm thrilled.
Yeah, and the receivers came through for sure. If you're any kind of PPR league, 8 receptions, 92 yards for Tyler Lockett, 4 receptions and 95 yards for DK Metcalf, but he did have a touchdown on that one. The notable thing, I think, for fantasy perspective from this game is Chris Carson. Chris Carson had a good fantasy day, but the thing that's a little concerning to me is he only got 6 carries. Like to me, that's just a little odd. He had 6 receptions for 45 yards and 2 touchdowns receiving, but he only had 6 carries for 21 yards. So, I mean, Carlos Hyde had 7 carries. Like, they just didn't run the ball that much, which is, I mean, exciting if you're an owner of Russell Wilson or Tyler Lockett or DK Metcalf, but a little concerning knowing that the tendency of this coaching staff has always been to run the ball.
Yeah, he's looking a little bit more valuable in PPR leagues. I think it was just a blowout. I mean, it really was ran away with fairly early. It was kind of close at halftime, not 5-point game. It was about a 3-point game, but it just started being ran away with towards the end in the third quarter. So I don't know how much I could chalk this up to the fact that, the passing game was just so efficient. And yeah, they're going to want to run the ball all the time. And even Pete Carroll decides to run when passing game's working. But it was just working so well today. I think they were just rolling with it. Carson, 6 receptions was nice for me. That was second on the team, 4 receptions right behind Tyler Lockett. He looked pretty good in the highlights that you kind of see. But yeah, I would have loved to see a little bit more rushing carries, and Carlos Hyde getting 7 is a little scary, a little worrisome, but Carlos Hyde will not be effective in the passing game. They weren't even looking at him. So I don't know where to take that backfield. Again, it was not really a backfield I was highlighting as one that I loved. But what I really wanted to highlight was guys like Lockett and Russ, who both went to town. They're obviously working together. Nothing missed in the offseason. 8 receptions there for Lockett. Fantastic. I mean, I thought it was a really good show by Seattle.
Yeah, on the Atlanta side, I mean, Julio does Julio things. 9 receptions for 157 yards. Like, I mean, he had 12 targets. Calvin Ridley also 12 targets, 9 receptions, 130 yards, and 2 touchdowns too. So excellent game if you own Calvin Ridley, not Todd Gurley. One notable thing here is that Russell Gage with 12 targets, 9 receptions, 114 yards. Now, I think this is going to be a pattern of Atlanta. I think Atlanta is going to have 3 viable options in the passing game week over week, and it's honestly just going to be a coin flip whether it's Hurst one week or Gage one week. Maybe Julio or Ridley have the off week every now and then. I think that's just what you're dealing with Atlanta. Yeah, it would have been nice if Hurst had more than 5 targets, 3 receptions, and 38 yards, but I think the reason for that was Gage having a good game. If Gage didn't have a good game, Hayden Hurst probably would have.
Yeah, and we saw classic Julio puts up a lot of yards, doesn't get a touchdown. You don't really need the touchdown out of him. But what I was just thrilled is that the Ridley that we have been hyping up all offseason is there. He's there. The rookie campaign is through. This guy's fantastic. He is really, really good, and we're just going to consistently see this in wins and losses. It does not matter. One thing, though, that I think does need to be pointed out is with Russell Gage getting 9 receptions like that, yes, Hayden Hurst struggled, but we're not seeing the reception game out of Todd Gurley. He only had 2 receptions. He had 1 yard to even come out of that. What I was loving out of Todd Gurley was the effectiveness in the run game. There was really no.
He did have 5 targets though, Todd Gurley, which was kind of impressive actually. I wasn't expecting a kind of receiving workload like that. Ito Smith had 3 targets. Brian Hill had 2 targets. So from what I expected, I did expect them to use kind of like a by committee approach for the running back receiving target portion of it, with Gurley getting the primary load and carries.
But the rushing was fully Gurley, and I really like that. I mean, obviously there's a couple carries. I mean, Ito had 1, Brian Hill had 3. But that's fantastic. Like, Todd Gurley was getting the core bit of the work. And yeah, it's going to be a game where they're chasing from behind. So you're not going to see 17, 18, 20 touches. But seeing 14 in a game where they're trailing the entire game, that's really good. I really like that. And I think he was running fairly efficiently. He had a 4 average, but he put 1 in the end zone. I think this is going to kind of be the Gurley. I think sitting around that 13-point range for you in fantasy is fantastic. Where we were getting him in about the 4th round, that's what you want. I can consistently roll that out as my flex play, as my 2, and feel pretty good about it. I think Todd Gurley's going to have a fairly consistent place in this offense. And outside of Hayden Hurst, I felt very confident in the Falcons' receiving core and Matt Ryan. And this is what we're going to see all year. It's very good.
Yep. To me, there was 2 ends of the spectrum with Gurley, because it's very well documented that I was not a fan of Todd Gurley going into this year. And part of my reasoning was the low end of the spectrum being that they make it a committee to some degree, and they use Brian Hill and Ito Smith more than they probably should, which it doesn't look like that's the case, which is a good sign for people who did draft Gurley. But my other end of it is, how long does this last? Because Todd Gurley can get 14 carries all he wants, but I don't believe in him over a full 16 games. We'll see how it goes. To me, I think if you're a Todd Gurley owner, you have kind of a ticking time bomb, to be honest, for how long that he's going to be an RB2 or whatever he ends up being for fantasy. So, I mean, I'm looking to sell Todd Gurley. That's just kind of me sticking to my initial analysis on Todd Gurley, but I very well could be wrong and he could be fine. But he wouldn't have been good if he didn't get a touchdown in this game, which was also a big part of my dislike for Todd Gurley, because, I mean, 4.0 yards per carry is okay, I guess, but it's not like great either.
Yeah, I think we bounce on to the next game, which was just we have to touch on it because it existed and it happened, and we have to just say something on it. So let's go ahead. The Bills roll the Jets. Yeah, the final looked a little bit closer because the Jets kind of showed up in the back end of the game. But, I mean, we went to half 21-3, and the Bills really had it handled. And Josh Allen looked at times incredible, and then at times was just being sloppy and kind of
very sloppy. He had a couple, like that one pass that he tried to throw to Moss in the end zone in double coverage. He had 2 bad fumbles.
And I don't know how much that was like a we're complacent, it's the Jets, we're going to get this win, or if it was just this is what we're going to expect because it's what we saw in bits last year. I hate to say that he kind of plays down to some competition sometimes. The Bills still get the win, and they looked really good. Obviously, the back half, the score does not really say it to me. I watched the majority of the game, and it was really all Bills, and the Jets kind of looked like a laughing stock. They started to throw some plays together at the end, but Darnold was not good. Just the one takeaway is Josh Allen was sloppy. He had a lot of passing attempts.
14 carries.
Yeah. He was their run game. I mean, we're all talking about Zach Moss and Singletary, which one's going to be the core bit.
Josh Allen, both bad.
Yeah.
On the ground.
Rough.
Yeah. I think the biggest takeaway in general from like a injury perspective is the fact that Le'Veon Bell left this game early with a hamstring injury. I mean, I don't want to say I warned you guys, but like 6 for 14 yards before he left the game. He had 2 receptions for 32 yards, which is pretty solid. But, I mean, Le'Veon Bell leaving the game early with a hamstring injury is not good. A hamstring injury on a running back is something that could linger. So we'll definitely have to keep an eye on the updates for that. But I have a feeling the Jets are going to be without Bell for a game or 2. And then potentially if they try and rush him back, it could be more.
Yeah, that's going to be an issue. The Jets are Stop going.
Yeah, we don't have to spend too much time on this game. Like Sam Darnold didn't have a good game. Like, I mean, that's probably to be expected. He plays for Adam Gase.
We'll touch on the Bills receiving core because that is actually fantasy relevant. Stephon Diggs, he had a pretty good game. He had a good chunk of yards and a good amount of receptions. That's what we want to see out of him. John Brown was the one that got in the end zone, along with Zach Moss. He had a reception as well. Him and Singletary both kind of actively involved in the receiving game, which was important. I think both those two can definitely do it.
Yeah, 7 targets for Singletary and 4 targets for Moss. You definitely like to see that for both guys. I didn't really think Moss was going to be involved all that much to start off. I thought he was going to be more of like a grinder type.
That's fair. I just saw Zach Moss in Utah. He gets it done. I mean, it's not like sexy. It's not something where it's like, oh my gosh, this guy needs to be the pass catcher. But he gets it done, and we saw it in this game. He gets it done. That's what you're expecting out of him. If you're trying to find value in him, I think he finished with about 10 points in fantasy. I mean, it's definitely not startable. It's a great bench play. If you're just absolutely pinched for a spot, he's a good play. What I really liked is that John Brown came to play too. It's not just Diggs showed up and John Brown and Beasley are like now disappeared. Beasley kind of faded away and lost a little bit of the receptions, but John Brown stepped up. He had 6 receptions, 70 yards, and he got a touchdown. I mean, that's fantastic. I think the touchdown game is going to be interesting because there still is Josh Allen rushing ability, and they'll still go to Moss and Singletary in the red zone. But I think we're going to see probably about 2 receiving touchdowns a game for this team consistently, and it's going to be between Diggs and Brown mainly, and Beasley may get 1 or 2. But that's what I like to see out of Brown, keeping himself fantasy relevant. He still exists. Go John Brown. Big stand.
Yeah, from the Jets receiving perspective, sell Jamison Crowder. If you got a good game out of Jamison Crowder, 13 targets, 7 receptions, 115 yards, and a touchdown. He had a huge play, a 69-yard touchdown.
Yeah.
If people think that Jamison Crowder is going to be like a wide receiver too this year, I mean, they might be right, but I'm not willing to take that risk on a bad offense. So if you can get good value for Jamison Crowder, I would try to sell him.
Yeah, exactly.
Chris Herndon didn't have a good game statistically, but 7 targets and 6 receptions, 37 yards, in what is probably one of the worst tight end matchups in the league in the Buffalo Bills with Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde manning the tight end position. That's a pretty good game from Chris Herndon. I actually expected him to be worse than this. So I'm not really concerned with Chris Herndon's performance at all. Nothing really else to take away from this game. On to the Bears versus the Lions. I think probably the biggest story from this game is the very end of it, where rookie DeAndre Swift probably dropped the game-winning touchdown.
Yeah. I think here's what you take away from it. If you're a veteran quarterback like Matthew Stafford is, it's going to take a while for that relationship to get comfortable again. It just will. It would take a while if it's Marvin Jones dropping that ball, who he has a relationship. It would take a while if it was Kenny Golladay missing that. It's just what happens. Quarterbacks are fickle in those situations when it's a big play situation. It's going to be hard for them to want to go back to you, and especially with a rookie. That does not look good for DeAndre Swift. That's what I'm seeing when I see that play happen. Sure, I prefer the Lions win that game. I kind of like the Lions, not that I'm a fan, but I want them to win that game. That hurts. You know what Matthew Stafford's thinking. You know he's not going to be put in that situation again, and that's really unfortunate for DeAndre Swift.
Yeah, from the quarterback position, Stafford had an okay game. He had 24 for 42, 297, a touchdown and an interception. Not the greatest game out of Matthew Stafford. It is a pretty tough defense to play. But honestly, like Mitch Trubisky might have looked rough, but statistically actually had a very good game. And if you played him, I know he was kind of like a sneaky DFS play if you played him in like tournaments or whatever. 242 yards and 3 touchdowns. He definitely paid off from that perspective, from a cheap quarterback play. I think we'd be remiss not to mention the freak of nature himself, Adrian Peterson, 14 carries, 93 yards. 6.6 per carry at he's 36 years old or something like that. Like,
that's the thing that drop ball by Swift, the opportunities are not going to open up. Like, this is something where we need to take the Adrian Peterson thing a little bit more seriously. I mean, we do, because Kerryon had 7 attempts. He had 14 yards. That's terrible. DeAndre Swift only got 3 attempts. Adrian Peterson was the guy they wanted to go to, and they kept going to him, and he was producing. This is serious. If you see him on your waiver wire, this is a guy I'm pushing to go get. This is legitimate. They weren't given the ball.
Matt Patricia doesn't care about our fantasy teams. And that's the scary thing with the DeAndre Swift dropping that ball too, is that Matt Patricia will probably punish him for that as well.
Yes, he will. Yes, he will. It's dangerous. I hate the backfield right now. In all honesty, I don't want to mess with it. But if I'm messing with it, I have to be honest. I'm going to Peterson. I have to.
Yeah, I actually don't hate that call. From the Bears backfield perspective, David Montgomery, 13 carries, even though he was, like questionable coming into the game.
Yeah.
He had a couple targets as well. Tariq Cohen, 7 carries, 41 yards. Meh, kind of okay, I guess.
Yards
Tariq
from
Cohen only had 2 targets too, which, if you played Tariq Cohen thinking, oh, maybe David Montgomery's limited and they use Tariq Cohen more, probably not the greatest outing from him if you put him in your fantasy lineup.
Yeah, and happy Cordell Patterson is on the Bears. It basically means he's going to get rushing carries. I love the jet sweep is the funnest play in the NFL because they love giving it to wide receivers who have zero value to fantasy. Because that's Cordell Patterson. He had 4 rushing attempts, which doesn't really help. You got to also look at it like this. This team had 6 points going into the fourth quarter. They were trailing from behind. They were going to have to throw to win. So I don't really know how much I value what I take out of the rushing situation. It sucks if you started a guy like Tariq Cohen or David Montgomery. But what I think is most important to touch on is the Lions were missing someone, and it was obvious. Matthew Stafford couldn't find that one guy who was consistently ready to just pound and replace the Golladay role. Golladay was gone. It wasn't good. We saw Amendola had five receptions, and that was pretty efficient. Kind of surprising. Hawkinson had 5 for 56 and a touchdown. I love that. I kind of was expecting him and Marvin Jones to go off. Marvin Jones only had 4 receptions, 55 yards. I was expecting him to be the guy that filled in that void and did it quite well. I was expecting almost kind of what we saw out of Hopkins, but a little bit less today, around the 9, 8, 10 reception mark.
I thought he was going to get peppered. And Quintez Cephas with 10 targets, undrafted free agent receiver.
Yeah. He was really good out of Wisconsin. If a team was going to understand him, it was going to be a team from that division that's right around that area that kind of knows what Quinton Cephas was doing in Wisconsin. I don't know. I don't know what to do with this backfield.
Nice game from TJ Hawkinson, though. 5 catches for 56 yards and a touchdown. That's promising if you took a late shot on him, knowing that he got out to a good start. But, he had a great week 1 last year, and that didn't really work out too well for him. If Anthony Miller is on your waiver wire, by the way, go get him because 6 targets, 4 receptions, 76 yards, and a touchdown, which is actually, I believe, the game-winning play for that game. It was Allen Robinson. Obviously had a pretty solid game as well. 9 targets, 5 receptions, 74 yards. Didn't catch a touchdown, but he didn't kill you either. If you're in any kind of PPR league, 12 points or whatever is what he got you. And kind of what I expected to see from the Bears receiving core was no one after those 2 guys. Was Miller and Robinson and no one else. Jimmy Graham caught a touchdown. If you want to mess around with Jimmy Graham, that's be my guess, but I'm not going to. Let's get off this game onto the other matchup between 2 NFC North teams. Packers 43. And Vikings 34. This was kind of a barn burner, to be honest. And
surprise.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers was if you listen to our DFS show, I said, play Aaron Rodgers in DFS because everyone is going to be playing Carson Wentz, and he's the same price as Carson Wentz. And people are just going to kind of skip over him because Wentz has the Washington football team. And Aaron Rodgers, 32 for 44, 364, and 4 touchdowns.
Yeah. Surprise! Guess what? Vikings don't have corners. Surprise! We said this at draft time. People were like, "Vikings have 2 first-round picks, and you guys are mocking for them to get 2 corners. You guys are insane. You guys are idiots." Nice wide receiver you have there. You got blown up in the receiving game. It's just this is what I kind of expected. Davante Adams absolutely blew up.
Disgusting game. 17 targets, 14 receptions, 156 yards, and 2 touchdowns. If you were in a PPR league, he put over 35.
Take these notes. Take these notes, please. Falcons secondary, Vikings secondary, 2 secondaries we predicted at draft time need to do drastic things to help their secondary. Really kind of didn't do it. They add one corner, like one core corner. It was not enough. We knew that was not enough. That was not going to fulfill the position. And both teams' secondaries got absolutely toasted. So please, I don't know who they play. I can look it up. But whoever the Falcons and Vikings play next week, if you can find a sneaky kind of candidate of a guy that can do some work, go get him. It's going to be big. That's a team where I would say down the road, start looking at week 14, 15, 16, find the wide receivers that play those teams. I know that's bold because we're in week 1, but if you think your team is set and you need to make one move, go find corners, go find wide receivers playing those teams because they're bad.
Yeah, they're not great. And you mentioned it. If you got some sneaky starts, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, 4 receptions for 96 yards and a touchdown. Alan Lazard, 4 receptions, 63 yards at a touchdown. Alan Lazard was kind of the guy that everyone predicted to be the number 2 receiver in this offense. And if anyone's concerned with Aaron Jones, don't be. He had 6 targets and he had 16 carries. That's plenty of volume. This is a pass funnel defense. As we meant, the corners are bad. Like, you don't run against the Vikings, you pass against them. So Aaron Jones only having 4.1 yards per carry really saved his day with a touchdown at the end. But, I mean, it doesn't really concern me because he had 22 opportunities to make plays in this game.
Yeah, and I think we kind of knew this going in. The story was going to be the wide receiver course for both teams. Adam Thielen was fantastic. I mean, this is what we expected. I thought his ADP was always just a little bit too low for how well he was last year. And he did great. Went over 100, 110 specifically. He had 2 touchdowns. It was Kirk Cousins going to him in the most important times of the game, and he was fantastic. And this is what I expect. I didn't think Justin Jefferson was just going to instantly step on the field and become the messiah for the Vikings offense. And that's kind of what happened. He only had 2 receptions. No
one had more than 4 targets on the Vikings other than Adam Thielen.
Yeah, Thielen's the guy. He is the guy. Cook wasn't as involved in the passing game as you want, which is sad.
2 touchdowns on the ground, though. Definitely can't complain about that.
I mean, that wins it. Because otherwise, outside of those touchdowns, I mean, he was no better than David Montgomery today. I mean, he just wasn't.
Yeah, and the one thing of note that I think people would probably be kind of had a question mark going into this game, A.J. Dillon only had 2 carries. So this is Aaron Jones' backfield, which I expected it to be. I think A.J. Dillon slowly edges out Jamal Williams as the season goes on, not Aaron Jones. I think this is there's been talks that Aaron Jones and the Vikings are going to be the Packers are going to be kind of discussing contract terms and stuff. I think A.J. Dillon's just going to be like a short yardage back for this season. I think he's probably going to be more of a 2021 guy. So that's just my prediction in week 1. Who knows? He could come out next week and get 17 carries, and I could look like an idiot. But
I mean, geez, what is it? Alan Lazard had a carry too. I mean, I love the deep depth chart rushing totals because I don't know. I wasn't really a believer in Dillon, and that's kind of what happened.
I believed in him as a player. I just didn't believe in him for fantasy this year. So we're going to move on to the next game, and this is a game I'll probably let you spearhead this because you probably watched every second of this game, being that you're a Miami Dolphins fan. Yeah, but the Dolphins fall short of the Patriots and Cam Newton in his debut for the Patriots at 21-11. I'll let you get into this one from what you saw.
Yeah, so what I will highlight first is I'm a Dolphin fan, so I'm going to go right to our team. Fitzmagic looked terrible. I mean, he looked terrible.
Yeah, no, he didn't look good. 3 picks.
3 picks does not say it all because he just looked bad. I mean, it was an embarrassment. The rushing backfield looked bad. The O-line, bad. The offense was not looking good. And that's just the sign of a better defense just taking advantage, and a smart defense taking advantage of just a rough offense. It's what it is. The biggest thing to note from this, if you want to take anything out of this game, Myles Gaskin had 9 rushing attempts for 40 yards. And you may be like, that's not a huge stat line. That is. Myles Gaskin was not even a projected sight. He was the 3rd guy.
I thought he would have gotten cut, to be honest.
And we weren't expecting that at all. We were like, it's going to be 2 guys, and that's it. Myles Gaskin, he's on the depth chart, right? Yeah, okay. I mean, Jordan Howard, 8 for 7. That's not a joke. Eight rushing attempts for 7. He was so ineffective in the game. He had a rushing touchdown. So if you want to sell him, okay, it's going to get you nowhere. Matt Breida had 5 rushing attempts. He was more we kind of figured he'd be more involved in the passing game. He wasn't. He was
not.
22. It was a joke, and it was Myles Gaskin getting it done. But he had 4 receptions too to go along with it for 26 yards. I mean, that's a waiver wire steal. I think a lot of people are going to be focusing on the big names that are kind of floating around that people maybe didn't believe in. Myles Gaskin's the starting running back. He is the starter for this team, and it's not a question. Jordan Howard was completely outclassed by him. I don't even think Myles Gaskin's all that good. He's just a starting running back. Go get starters, right? Go chase Myles Gaskin. He's going to find a team that's not the Patriots in the next upcoming weeks.
I wouldn't be spending a crazy amount of fab on him, but he's definitely worth a shot.
He's under the radar. I doubt anyone's going to realize that he actually put up as much as he did. He was the offense today. He really was, because Preston didn't do much. Parker didn't do much. Both sat
Parker, glad you bring that up. Parker left the game early with a hamstring injury. So he had a hamstring injury going into this game, and he was questionable, and he retweaked it. So that's not good if you spent a 6th-round pick or whatever on Devante Parker, because that likely means he's going to be out 3 to 4 weeks, if I had to guess.
Yeah, and now we can actually bounce to the relevant stuff from this game, which was the Patriots. Cam Newton had 15 rushing attempts.
Yep.
He's healthy. He's good to go. I mean,
And Bill Belichick has him for 1 year, and he's going to abuse the shit out of him as a runner for that 1 year.
Absolutely. And he got 2 rushing touchdowns in this. No passing. Passing game was kind of ineffective on both sides, but that's what we were expecting. Both teams have very solid secondaries. Cam Newton really couldn't do much in the passing game, but it was just the rushing. The rushing abilities was fantastic. Sony Michel had 10 rushing carries. We didn't really see it out of James White. He had 5, kind of relatively ineffective, but he was there in the receiving game, and it just wasn't a high offensive game. We can take
a little bit of a slugfest.
It kind of was, and you just got to take what you can out of it, and that's Cam Newton and Myles Gaskin. Those are the 2 guys that I'm okay with you trading for Cam Newton right now, because I could genuinely see this being 15 more games of this, and at the end of the season, we may not see Cam Newton ever be startable again, because I swear he's going to be used.
Yeah, I don't disagree there. Like you said, Julian Edelman had an okay game. I mean, 5 receptions, 57 yards, and he had a carry for 23 yards. That's a solid game. You can't be disappointed with that. Overall, though, this was just a slugfest, and I kind of expected it to be one, because both teams were coming in a little bit cold, like all the teams in the NFL. One thing that's worth noting, though, is that the Dolphins play the Bills next week, and I kind of expect another bad outing for Ryan Fitzpatrick again against that defense. We might see Tua in week 3, man, if he's healthy.
Cry. I can't. I kept yelling at my screen. I'm like, just put him in. But no, we cannot. We have to stick with this. Let him ride. It's not him paying his dues. It's him learning. I need him to learn, and I need him to not die against good defenses. We can't roll him out.
In week 3, he plays the Jaguars, so he's definitely not playing a good defense in his first start if he plays week 3.
Whoa, don't get me too excited. All right. Do you want to bounce to the next game?
Yes.
I think that's all the value we can get, because this one's fun, and you can just gloat for this one here.
I can gloat for this one because, I mean, I've called the Eagles one of the most overrated teams in the league, because everyone just says they're a Super Bowl contender every year, and they just get decimated by injuries. And that's not really their fault, but it just happens. The only person on their team that never gets injured is Zach Ertz, pretty much. So the Washington football team kind of trounced them 27-17 on the back of Peyton frickin' Barber and his 17 carries for 29 yards, but he had 2 touchdowns. I just want to start with, we're not going to talk about Washington too much. Dwayne Haskins, kind of a pedestrian game, but Antonio Gibson only getting 9 carries for 36 yards, 4.0 yards per carry, and then he only had 2 receptions. That's not good. Like with Peyton Barber as your only competition, I think I'm not worried about him being effective or not, because this was a bad matchup against the Eagles defense. Yeah, but I think you needed to see at least 15 touches out of the guy, and he only had 11 touches.
Yeah, the rushing game wasn't going to happen. It just wasn't. The Eagles you don't run against. You just don't. They have kind of a weaker secondary. Honestly, you look at the stat sheet, and you're like, how the hell did they win this game? And that's a great question. I think it's just the Eagles just pissing it away.
They sacked Wentz 8 times. That's how they won this game.
They got to him bad. Lane Johnson not there. Is that contract distributions? I'm pretty sure, right?
No, he was hurt. And then Brandon Brooks has been out for the season. Andre Dillard's out for the season. Like, their O-line's already decimated. And Miles Sanders is hurt too. So
yeah. You know what? I think watching this game, it made me kind of concerned for McLaurin. I think we're like, it's a garbage play. We know McLaurin will have to capitalize in the fourth quarters and stuff like that. He had 5 receptions for 61. But, I mean, I'm kicking myself the whole time watching. It's my first share of McLaurin. I didn't have any shares of him last year.
To be fair, though, I didn't see any stats saying, well, he was shadowed by Darius Slay. But if he was, that's a respectable stat line against a shadow corner.
Yeah, that's true. So, I don't know. It's just value-wise.
7 targets, though. I mean, Haskins only threw the ball, 30 times? So, I mean,
my gosh.
What?
I'm sorry. I'm currently watching the Dallas Rams game. They just showed the Rams stadium from the outside. Oh my gosh, the stadium's gorgeous.
Oh yeah.
Better than Jerry World. I'm sorry. Okay, back to the content.
Yes. Boston Scott was the sexy name. Everyone asking start-sit questions certainly had a lot about Boston Scott. I don't want to say I told you guys so, because Danny had him ranked inside his top 15, and I was like, I have him as a mid RB3 because I mean, what has happened in Doug Peterson's backfield when Miles Sanders wasn't there? A committee, right? Okay, well, Corey Clement got 6 carries and Boston Scott got 9 carries. And it was, I mean, they weren't, like Carson Wentz threw the ball 42 times. Boston Scott only had 2 targets. Like, I kind of expected this, to be honest. I didn't think Boston Scott was going to be very good in this game.
Well, my expectation was this was going to be a game where they were just going to throw a bunch, and I thought Boston Scott was going to be involved in the receiving game. So for everyone that I wronged, because I said Boston Scott in a lot of situations that I was gifted on Notorious's channel, I thought he was going to get a lot more receptions than the two he got. I'm going to be honest. I thought this was a game where he was going to get a lot of receptions, and that was going to be where his value is. I think the main thing that I have to talk about, and you just can't skip over it whatsoever, and I talked about it in the offseason a good bit. Surprise, Dallas Goedert has gotten more increasing roles as the seasons have gone, and today he had 5 more receptions than Zach Ertz. And Zach Ertz, that's scary. I can't. I mean, he was saved with a touchdown, but Goddard had a touchdown. He was over 100 yards. He's the only receiver in this game over 100 yards.
Only receiver over 55 yards.
Yeah, the only one over 70. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I think I got really excited at first. When I saw Jalen Reagor catch that bomb, I was like, oh, man, it's Jalen Reagor's season. But that was the only reception in the game. So, I mean, I think we're going to have to wait a bit on Reagor. He also is just coming off an injury, so maybe he was like, I don't know what the snap share is off the top of my head, but I'm sure he played kind of like a limited role in terms of snap counts because Deshaun Jackson was on the field quite a bit, obviously. Greg Ward, 7 targets, was on the field quite a bit. And then John Hightower, I saw get some run. He had 4 targets as well. So I'm pretty sure they just kind of eased Reagor in his first game coming off the injury. I don't think I'd be too concerned about him. I do think he's worth a pickup if he's still on your waiver wire because I think he will be the number 2 receiver at worst in this offense for the time being.
Biggest thing I want to take out of this before we jump to the next one is you have to respect the Redskins 7. Their front 7 is fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, Chase Young looked every bit like the 2nd overall pick he was.
They're going to win games. And it showed they won it today. They're going to win games. That's going to be the core bit of their team. They're going to win games because of it. Riverboat Ron's going to fucking send all of them. I mean, that front 7 is going to do so much damage. And teams that are weak in the offensive line, I don't know if I want to start their offensive players. I think this has confirmed it. I don't want to mess with players that
that can wreck your game. If you have a defensive line, like we saw this with the Niners last year. The Niners were not projected to be a Super Bowl team last year coming into the season. Yeah. And I don't think the Washington football team is a Super Bowl team, but would it shock me if they won 7 games? No, it wouldn't, because they have a defensive line that can get after you. And if you play a team that, like you said, has a weak offensive line, which I would say the majority of teams in the NFL would be outmatched by Washington's defensive front, it's concerning because it can ruin your game. And we saw that with Wentz. Wentz was never comfortable this whole game. Every drop back, he got sacked 8 times.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. We can jump on to the next game. That game was tough, though, to watch, though. I think Eagles jump out big, and then the Redskins kind of just slowly – I think we're just going to see that, is you can't just sit on this team because they're just going to slowly just creep back in. If you do, they don't really have a lot of offensive threats, but their defense is going to put them in good situations. They did today. They're going to put them in great situations. All Dwayne Haskins has to do is just manage. That's it. I mean, he's being asked to game manage, and that's what exactly we thought these next 2 quarterbacks would be forced to doing until we saw an absolute shootout, and that's in the Raiders and Panthers game. Yeah,
so the Raiders come away with this one 34-30. Derek Carr was super efficient. I mean, as usually, 22 for 30, 239 and a touchdown. Teddy Bridgewater, also pretty efficient, 270 and a touch from him. Overall, from this game, the biggest takeaway, in my opinion, was the fact that Robbie Anderson seemed to be everywhere. 8 targets, 6 receptions, 115 yards, and a touchdown, 75-yard bomb. And he also had a 2-point conversion as well. He seemed like Teddy's go-to guy. From a DJ Moore owner in multiple leagues, I was frustrated watching this game.
Absolutely. And you know what? From a McCaffrey stander, I have him up here for a reason. He's won me leagues. I couldn't have predicted this. I mean, you watched Teddy B last year. What was it? It was short passes, and it was to Kamara. That's what he leaned on. And I should have looked more into the fact that that's all the Saints really kind of have in a receiving core is Kamara and Michael Thomas on short routes and things like that.
I think this is one of the best 6 or 7 receiving cores in the league, the Panthers.
Yeah, they're good. And they're more versatile than what we thought was just DJ Moore and McCaffrey. McCaffrey only had 3 receptions. We were questioning. Fantasy Twitter was all over it. They're like, just Teddy B know that Christian McCaffrey can catch a football. I mean, that was kind of making me a little livid. And of course, he's going to get it done in the rushing game. The Raiders aren't really great at stopping the run. 96 yards at 23 attempts, so they were holding him. But 2 touchdowns is what he lived off of. We thought we were going to see.
This was a down game for McCaffrey for what it's worth. Like, he had like 25 points still.
Yeah, he had a bunch of points. So it's like, fuck. I mean, but this is still your number 1 pick. Don't panic. If someone offers you a shit trade and you're like, oh, I can get Josh Jacobs for him straight up.
No, don't do it.
I mean, just don't. Like, don't panic. I would say for a McCaffrey owner, you picked him there for a reason. Other things you can kind of take out of this, Teddy B was running the ball fairly efficiently. He had 4 rushing attempts, 26 yards. The Raiders' receiving core was pretty much all over the place. I don't really think there was a consistent guy. One thing I did like was Josh Jacobs getting 4 receptions. I'll hang on to that.
6 targets.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think had Ruggs not – so in this game, Ruggs left, I believe it was midway through the second quarter and came back after the half about midway through the third quarter with what they're calling a knee injury. So yeah. I'm not exactly – like, I don't think he tore his ACL. Otherwise, he wouldn't have come back.
For extension, when I watched it, I was like, that it's either that or it's an ankle, and it came out to be the knee. So that's what I would thought.
I don't think he even like sprained his MCL, to be honest, because I think he would have been out for the game had that happened. So I think Ruggs will be okay. He'll probably be kind of practicing in limited of fashion this week. Maybe he's questionable going into next week, but I think he'll be all right. And to be honest, 5 targets and 2 carries for Henry Ruggs, that's pretty solid for a rookie receiver. He had 66 total yards and 7 opportunities. I don't hate that. I expected Ruggs to have a big game, but I think the injury kind of dampened that. We saw the big speed from him. He was tackled, I think, inside the 10-yard line on that big catch that he had. But yeah, Darren Waller, 8 targets, 6 receptions, 45 yards. I'm not concerned. Like, to be honest, I think he still was the leading target on the team, which I expect. Carr just for whatever reason, they kind of just spread the ball out in this game. I don't really know how else to explain it.
Yeah, it's not like the Panthers are locking anyone down. Their secondary is really not good. So, it was just a situation where there was probably a lot of open guys every single play, and they're just rolling with whoever, he sees first. And yeah, I'm fairly confident with Waller. I wouldn't be panicked. The one guy I'm not, though, actually at all, I'm actually highly concerned is Bryan Edwards, who had 1 reception in this one. He had 9 yards.
I actually thought he'd be like that guy every year. That's the number 1 waiver priority pickup. Like, after week 1, I thought there's an outside shot that Bryan Edwards just went nuts in this game.
Yeah.
Because like you said, I think the Panthers corners, and I believe Dante Jackson went down in this game too. Was there he was bad too, but he was like the only corner that anyone knew on their team. Yeah. And he went down. Like, I thought Ruggs and Edwards were just going to torch the Panthers corners in this game. That's not exactly how it shook out. It ended up being the Josh Jacobs show, but Edwards a little bit disappointing if you started him in tournaments in DFS or if you last minute flexed him when Miles Sanders was ruled out or something like that, because we got a couple people doing that.
And what I'll say is Derek Carr, I picked him up fairly confidently in a few leagues, like as like in Superflex leagues where I'm like, I think I could sell him fairly high after this week because I thought this was going to be a shootout, and it was, but it was not because Derek Carr was efficient. He was efficient, but not because he was putting out a monster amount of fantasy points. And yeah, pardon, we're both watching the Cowboy Rams.
Yeah, I was trying to turn to it there actually.
Yeah, so on NBC, that's a little plug. It's just a Derek Carr thing. I really thought he was going to put up a few more touchdowns. I think Josh Jacobs was just so damn efficient when it came into the red zone. I think that's what I have to look at more. Is that Cam Akers' first reception? No, it's not. That's 17. Anyways, I'll stop being distracted. Very, very good game, fantasy points-wise, but a lot more situation where guys were spreading out the ball. So we kind of thought a few guys were going to pop off. They didn't. A lot of guys kind of were able to get some chances. That's kind of what I take away from this game.
Yep. And this next game had a lot of people probably pulling their hair out for the first couple minutes. But I think the story of this game is what I've been saying all offseason, that Gardner Minshew is a good quarterback. Everyone who just expected this team to go fucking 2-14 and lose all these games, they have a good quarterback. When you have a good quarterback, you're going to win 4 or 5 games, even if your roster's terrible, which the Jags roster is terrible. But 27-20, they beat the Colts. Some people who think the Colts are like some 12-win team. And Gardner Minshew went 19 for 20, 173 yards and 3 touchdowns. I think the story of this game was just how efficient the offense was. Like James Robinson wasn't very good on the ground, 16 carries, 62 yards, 3.9 per carry. I mean, DJ Chark only had 3 targets, which is a little concerning if you thought this was kind of a smash matchup, which I did think it was. He definitely saved your ass by getting into the end zone. Laviska Shenault, 4 targets, like Keelan Cole, 5 targets. There just wasn't a lot of pass attempts for Minshew in this game. They were just super efficient on offense, and that's just kind of how the game went.
Yeah, Robert Woods is eating to start this game.
Thank God, because I have him in my big money league, and I need a lot of points out of him.
Robert Woods is fantastic. You're not going to hear a preview of us talking about this game. I mean, we'll try and talk a little bit about it as it goes. But Robert Woods, fantastic. Fantastic player.
Got another ball just now.
Yeah, there you go. One thing that I wanted to point out, there really wasn't a lot of options in Indy. I thought we were going to see maybe one prominent target. I knew we were going to kind of get a mixed backfield, a mixed bag, but I thought it was going to be Mack and Taylor. So when I saw Mack go down, I'm like, all right, here we go. Jonathan Taylor, that won't take long. Here he goes.
And for what it's worth, they believe that he tore his Achilles. I don't know if it's actually come out confirmed if he did or not, but that's what they think happened. And if that's the case, man, holy shit, is Jonathan Taylor going to be a league winner if that happens?
But here's the thing: Nyheim Hines had 7 carries.
I don't care.
I mean, yeah.
Here's why I don't care. Yes, Jonathan Taylor had 9 carries, only 22 yards, but Jonathan Taylor had 6 targets, 6 receptions, 67 yards, which I didn't expect from Jonathan Taylor. So if Jonathan Taylor's going to be involved in the passing game, I'm cool with it because obviously I expected Jonathan Taylor. Like if you told me Mack went down early in this game before it started, I would have been like, okay, Jonathan Taylor probably got 20 carries. Nyheim Hines probably got all the third down work. No, like it was almost the opposite actually from what it seemed like. Because Nyheim Hines was getting all the work inside the 10-yard line.
And Nyheim Hines had 8 receptions as well. I genuinely think this is going to be, and I thought this coming into the season, this is going to be a running back situation where there's just a good handful of options, and you're not limited. It's kind of like Cleveland, where it's like you can start Kareem Hunt and still feel good. That's your Nyheim Hines. Your Nick Chubb that can catch is Jonathan Taylor, and I can roll with that. That's something I wanted to see is kind of how that shaped out. I wasn't real confident in playing Taylor. I did tell some people to play him because I thought he would get a touchdown in this one just because Jacksonville is a little weak in the red zone. Obviously, their defense is just miserable. But, yeah, we didn't really see that. And then in the passing game, we saw a very, very widespread amount of receptions.
Paris Campbell, if he's on your waiver wire, is probably going to be one of the guys that Danny talks about tomorrow on the waiver wire targets show. Because Paris Campbell had 9 targets, 6 receptions, and 71 yards. That's pretty good volume for someone like he out-targeted T.Y. Hilton. Or he had the same amount of targets. Sorry, he had more receptions and yards than him, though.
Yeah. And then on the other side of the ball, there was a interesting situation, I would say. I mean, Laviska Shenault showed up. He had a touchdown. That was really great. Keenan Cole apparently is a genuine option for this team. He had 5 receptions, 47 yards. He had a touchdown as well. DJ Chark, 3 for 25, touchdown saves his day. I mean, so I don't know what to think about that receiving core. And Rams are first and goal on the 1-yard line, so there's a chance they push this in. But what do you think about the Jaguars situation? It's Cam Akers. It's Cam Akers up the middle.
34. No, it is Malcolm Brown. Classic week 1 Malcolm Brown showing out.
Gross. Malcolm Brown hawking touchdowns. Anyways, yeah, Jaguar receiving core. What do you pull value-wise from? Do you think Eifert? I mean, the tight ends look terrible. What do you think?
I think Keelan Cole having the game he had is just a fluke, to be honest. If you're going to pick up anyone from this game, it's Laviska Shenault on your waiver wires. I don't think I'd be overly concerned about DJ Chark just yet because, I mean, Minshew only threw the ball 20 times. And it's not like they blew the team out and ran the ball. Like, it was a good game script. I think it was just kind of fluky, the fact that they threw the ball 20 times. They were just kind of super efficient. They had a lot of big plays. Where they got their points from. And they actually, when they got turnovers, the Jags defense, they were in good field position, so they didn't have to go far. So I would say I wouldn't be too concerned with DJ Chark. I think he's still going to be the leading target on this team.
Gotcha.
The touchdown definitely saves his day, though, because he would have had a bad game if it wasn't for that touchdown.
Well, Robinson got 16 carries. I think this was something we were going to see is Jacksonville's going to run the ball. They're going to do it.
He's going to continue to be a guy that's going to be a popular start-sit question week in and week out, James Robinson, because he's going to get volume. It's not good volume, but it's volume. So if he falls into the end zone once every 2 weeks, he's probably going to be like a RB or high-end RB3. So You could definitely start James Robinson. We basically, I think another thing that we didn't talk about yet is the fact that Chris Thompson wasn't really involved in the passing game at all.
Yeah, that's true. I think that was something we were going to see. And
I did too. I thought we were going to see like a 6 or 7 target game from him, and he only had 2 targets, I believe.
Yeah, and what we kind of have to look at is we're kind of analyzing the receiving core work. Minshew only passed the ball 20 times. He went 19 for 20, which
yeah, it's wild.
Applause. That's fantastic. And he had 3 touchdowns. So there wasn't really much going on the rushing end. But this was a game that I wasn't expecting very much high scoring in. I thought the Colts were just going to kind of take it and then just sit on it. But yeah, Gardner looked really good. He really did. And I think if you want to take a Jacksonville player, I normally won't say this. I'll normally go for a running back or like a tight end or a wide receiver. But go get Gardner. I think we could see this fairly consistently. The Colts have a good defense, and it just didn't come to play. Or maybe Minshew was just better.
Yeah, and Minshew, like from what we just saw, like it looks like he took that step forward, like in his career, because like Minshew was always like a garbage time quarterback last year. Last year it was like the Jags were getting killed, and Minshew threw the ball 40 times, and that's why he was good for fantasy. Yeah. This year he took 20 attempts, and he had 3 touchdowns on those 20 attempts. So I definitely can't take away anything from Minshew's performance other than he played really well. So on to the next game, and this. It's going to make Tyler laugh for sure. I know I've been kind of the Browns stan of the channel, but I expected this to happen too. Ravens 38, Browns 6. They got killed. Like this wasn't even close from the very beginning. Baker Mayfield, very not good game. 21 for 39, 189 yards, a touchdown, and a pretty bad pick as well. On the ground, a little surprising that Kareem Hunt had more carries than Nick Chubb, to be honest.
It isn't. 4 out of 6 games last year, he had more carries than Kareem Hunt, than Nick Chubb. We've seen it before, and that's unfortunate. That's really not great.
Yeah, because that's and they paid Kareem Hunt too. They gave him an extension, and to me, it almost signals more that it's going to be more of a 50-50 split.
Yeah. This was not a good situation for the Browns. They looked really bad. This was not a game we were expecting them to look good in, and yeah, this. There you go. This is the result of when a really good team that's clean, is crisp, plays well together, goes up against a team that's just kind of loose. They're loose. Their line is
new head coach too. Not a lot of new pieces. Jedrick Wills, the left tackle for the Browns, apparently went down in this game. I definitely monitor that situation if you have any Browns players, because I mean their offensive line was the sole reason, aside from Freddie Kitchens and Baker Mayfield playing like shit, that they weren't good last year. So if their offensive line is dinged up already, that's probably not a good sign. From the Ravens perspective, Mark Ingram was bad in this game. Like he didn't look good. I expected him to come out and just fucking pound the shit out of the Browns defense. 10 carries for 29 yards. In a very favorable game script, he only got 10 carries. J.K. Dobbins, 7 carries, 22 yards, and 2 touchdowns. I mean, J.K. Dobbins isn't going to be on any of your waiver wires, but I mean, if you can, I don't want to say sell J.K. Dobbins, because I think this is going to be a committee for as long as Mark Ingram is healthy. But I mean, it's a little concerning for Mark Ingram's sake that J.K. Dobbins had a good, efficient game. Not efficiency in terms of like average yards per carry, but just looked good and looked explosive, and Ingram did not.
Yeah, it's interesting. This is just a odd off situation. I think the Browns front 7 isn't too bad. I think they're going to do better against the run consistently throughout the year. Marquise Brown 8. Willie Snead did his thing, because apparently Willie Snead still.
Lamar Jackson had nearly a perfect passer rating, just for the record.
He was fantastic, and obviously you got to take into account that Lamar's going to run too, and he's going to be a little bit more efficient than the 2 backs. As far as the J.K. Mark Ingram situation, I guess I'm going to have to come up with an answer soon, because I'm going to sit and be asked this question probably consistently: is who should I actually be rolling out there if you handcuffed them and you have both? I just don't know yet. J.K. just got the touchdowns today. That's just sometimes just how it's going to roll. Maybe next week we may see Mark Ingram scores both of them and J.K. puts up more yards. I mean, it's just back in. You just never know. It's a committee situation. It's tough right now. And I think seeing this game, it may be a little bit harder for J.K. to kind of beat out Mark Ingram. I think we were kind of just expecting it to just happen. CSC, this is what happens when your team trades away Byron Jones and you think you only need wide receivers and your line's bad. You're just going to get sacked. Sorry, Dak. Aaron Donald eats you up. But yeah, this is just – the receiving core was very good. I think Marquise Brown put up a really, really good stat line. Mark Andrews did his thing. He had 2 touchdowns. Hashtag Mark Ingram in the end zone. It's just going to happen.
Yep.
As far as what you could take away from the Browns, you take away the Kareem Hunt situation, it's going to be a running team. They ran the ball 23 times in a situation where they really couldn't do much on offense. I don't chalk that up too much. I think it's just a bad matchup. The Browns aren't going to beat the Ravens this year. They won't. They're going to get beat next time they play as well. It's just the powers of the Browns offense and the power of the Ravens defense, and then the power of the Ravens defense and the power of the Browns. They just don't match up.
The weird thing about this division, too, the AFC North in general, is it's a complete dichotomy of like luck and like franchise like stability. Because you got the Steelers and Ravens, 2 of the most like not historic because the Ravens haven't been around that long, but in their existence, both of these franchises have been winners, well-run, like great teams. And then you have the Cincinnati Bengals, who we'll talk about in a second, blew their game, and the Cleveland Browns, who are probably 2 of the 4 most laughingstock franchises in the league, I would say.
Yeah.
And probably dead last in like the last 2 as in the biggest laughingstocks in the league. So speaking of laughingstocks, my Tampa Bay Buccaneers laid a fucking egg against the New Orleans Saints. New Orleans 34, Tampa Bay 23.
You want to touch on the Browns receiving corps just real quick, just to see if there's any value.
I don't think I'm really taking too much away from it because it was a bad matchup. Like I told you to sit Odell and I told you to sit Jarvis because Marlon Humphrey, Marcus Peters, like these guys are good corners. Like don't fuck with them because they are good. That's basically my takeaway.
Fair enough. Yeah, so we'll jump to the Bucs game.
All right. So the Bucs game, Brady looked a little pissed off, to be honest, at his team because, I mean, the first interception that he threw, Mike Evans ran the wrong route. I'm certain of it. I saw it last year with Jameis Winston. He ran the wrong route, and right away you could see him his lips talking or whatever to Brady on the sideline, being like, I fucked up kind of thing. So I don't chalk like the interceptions, like that was a bad throw. The second interception, that was just a bad throw. Like that was the pick 6 that Janoris Jenkins got. But Brady, 239 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. He wasn't horrible for fantasy, from a fantasy perspective. He got a couple points if you started him. But the big story, in my opinion, from this whole game is the fact that when Bruce Arians said Ronald Jones is the starter of this team and Leonard Fournette, Shady McCoy, and these other guys are going to mix in when he's tired, he meant it. 17 carries, and the second most carries on the team was Leonard Fournette with 5. LaShawn McCoy did not get a single carry. And not only that, but Ronald Jones had 3 targets. Leonard Fournette had 1 target, and LaShawn McCoy had 1 target. So, I mean, it wasn't even a great game script for the run, and he still got 17 carries for Ronald Jones. So I know this was a terrible matchup, so the efficiency, I'm not really worried about the fact that he only had 3.9 yards per carry and stuff. But
I got it.
The volume is there, and it's going to continue to be there. And I think even with Leonard Fournette, as he picks up the offense, and as he continues to go along, I still think Ronald Jones is the guy to own in this backfield. Yeah,
I'm going to take it on the chin. I am, because I had 0 confidence in Ronald Jones for shit. I was laughing at it. I was like, aha, Fournette's there now, fuckers. I don't want Fournette anymore. I have him in a league where I was like, ooh, back of the 4th round value. Ooh, and it was before he got moved out of Jacksonville. And that sucks because it's a money league. So, we'll take that one on the chin. I still took care of business in that league this week, though. But, yeah, it's Ronald Jones' backfield, and I'm not even going to question it. It's the receiving core that I think is interesting. We knew Evans came in banged up.
Yeah, I wouldn't have. If you started Evans, that's your own fault, to be honest. Like, he had a hamstring injury in a bad matchup where he's being shadowed by a corner who's historically had his number. So, I mean, I wouldn't have started Evans if you, like – fringe guys like Jalen Reagor, I would have started over Mike Evans.
Yeah. What I want to talk about is like Scotty Miller stepping up and filling that role. Is that going to be consistent? And then the other thing is OJ Howard and Rob Gronk. What's going on? Who's your tight end? I'm going to let you kind of just answer that one though.
That's what I expected to happen, to be honest, because Gronk, primarily from what I saw, played primarily in line. And when Howard got targets and he got a touchdown in this game as well, he was split out or split into the slot. And that's what I expected them to do, to be honest, because that's how you use them effectively, because Gronk is the better blocker and Howard is more athletic in space because he's not 30 years old and coming off a bunch of injuries and stuff like that. So I do expect this to continue. I do think Gronkowski, and I've said this before, Gronkowski's value lies in red zone. If Gronk doesn't have a touchdown, he's going to have a bad week, and I think that's going to be consistent throughout the whole season. Whereas Howard might have a couple big plays that get it that kind of buoy his value. Chris Godwin, no concern. 7 targets, 6 receptions, 79 yards. I mean, that's kind of what you expect out of Chris Godwin in a bad game. When he has a bad game, that's about what his stat line is going to be. As you mentioned, Scotty Miller, 5 receptions for 73 yards. That's something to monitor. I think that was more so an effect of Mike Evans being limited, that Scotty Miller was on the field more. So let's move over to the Saints side. And this is a guy I expected to have a good game, and Jared Cook, 5 receptions for 80 yards. He didn't get into the end zone, but he did have a solid game. He was going up against the safeties on our team, or the 2 weakest points of the roster probably, in rookie Antoine Winfield Jr. and Jordan Whitehead. So I did expect Jared Cook to have a good game. Alvin Kamara just fucking feasted in this game from not a efficiency perspective, but he was in the right place at the right time for touchdowns, and he did do well as a receiver as well.
Yeah, completely agree. I think one thing I have to tip my hat off to you. You preached it all off season. You were consistent on it. You were like, don't doubt it, because it's going to be good. A team that was 30th in passing defense last year via the stats on the TV, your cornerback crew looked really good. They locked down Sanders. Sanders kind of
Carlton Davis clamped Michael Thomas, like absolutely clamped him.
It was fantastic. I think that's the biggest takeaway is you can't – we used to be like last year, we're like, okay, your running backs are going to be iffy against the Bucs. They're just going to be. I think we started seeing it at the back end of last year, and it proved to be showcased in this game today. I would be skeptical in starting your top receivers against this team. I would be.
Yeah, because the pass rush is great too, and you saw that. Sue and Vea had a bunch of bad penalties, but Sue was getting pressure. JPP was getting pressure. Devin White looked like a man on fire out there. He was killing people and getting up and screaming in their face. Same with Levante David. They're a good defense. They're not the same cupcake Bucks matchup that we know and love from DFS players like myself. I always played Where's Waldo, who's on Vernon Hargraves this week, and he's going to go off. That's not the same corner crew that we have in Tampa anymore. They're a good defense, and I wouldn't fuck with them too much if you can help it.
Yeah, exactly. The final question I want to ask is the rushing game for the Saints. Latavius Murray had 15 rushing attempts and Kamara had 12. Is this a running back by committee? Should we even worry about that? Are we expecting Kamara to just get the receiving work and Murray's just going to have more of a rush?
I think it's a little bit of a game script thing because they were up. They were pretty up decisively from starting at the midway through the third quarter. And I think, I don't know off the top of my head when Latavius Murray got the majority of his carries, but I'd imagine he got a lot of them salting the game away as the grinder back. And again, from Alvin Kamara going 12 carries for 16 yards, this is the worst matchup for a running back in the NFL. It is. Vea, Sue, the 2 linebackers I mentioned, you can't run on this team. And Kamara got lucky with a rushing touchdown, but the receiving work is what buoyed his stats. And that's what's going to be the case for any running back that plays this team. If they can't catch passes, you don't start them. Yep.
Fair enough. Any other takeaways from that Bucks Saints game, or do we want to bounce on to the one fun, awesome game that I'm mad about? But yeah.
Yes, and the Chargers and the Cincinnati Bengals, 16-13 for the Los Angeles Chargers in what was kind of a slugfest, to be honest. Tyrod Taylor being Tyrod Taylor kind of managed the game, 208 yards, no touchdowns, no picks. People who were like, "Oh yeah, just start Tyrod Taylor. He's gonna he has a great match." I don't want to start a game manager like Tyrod Taylor. I think guys like Teddy Bridgewater and Derek Carr have way more upside on a weekly basis than Tyrod Taylor, and those guys are game managers too. So yeah, exactly. I think the big takeaway from this game is the fact that Austin Eckler was a 0 in the receiving game.
Yeah. Here's my thing. Eckler, Mixon. These are 2 guys I was buying every bit of stock I could. I hang in the back of the rounds. You guys know me. I want my 2 running backs at the back end on my first pick and my turn. I was going for Eckler. I was going for Mixon. Both combined for 2 receptions today, 1 per. Ouch. I'm hurt. I'm seriously hurt. Why is Giovanni Bernard? What? When did he become existent again? That hurt. That cut like a knife. Eckler had 19 rushing attempts for 84 yards. He's effective when he's getting in the passing game too. You guys are doing both, and it just wasn't happening. I was so lost as to what their plan was. It's not a different coach, is it? I'm pretty sure the Chargers kept their same head coach.
It's the same coach. I'm not concerned. People might be like, "Oh man, Josh Kelly had 12 carries." Yes, if Josh Kelly's on your waiver wire, go pick him up because you might be able to start him in a pinch. The fact that he got the red zone work was a little concerning to me. Like Josh Kelly was pretty much in there most of the red zone attempts, but Austin Eckler should not be getting 19 carries a game. And I say that as the guy who had Austin Eckler as his RB6 going into the season. Like I think Austin Eckler needs to get 6, 7, 8 targets a game and 14, 15 carries max. Like that's his sweet spot. That's the like area where you want to use Austin Eckler. And that's how they've always used Austin Eckler. So I'm really hoping this is just a fluke. I remember 2 years ago, Kareem Hunt had like 0 targets the first 2 games of the season. And we all freaked out. Why isn't Patrick Mahomes throwing to Kareem Hunt? Alex Smith was the check down king. This feels a lot like this. Like, to be honest, this feels like, oh man, because I know people are already going to say, oh, we saw Tyrod Taylor didn't check it down like Phillip Rivers. Like, yeah. I kind of expect this to be a little bit of an anomaly, to be honest, in terms of Austin Eckler's receiving work.
Yeah, fair enough. One thing that was slightly surprising and happily surprising, we'll say, Joe Burrow ran the ball 8 times, 46 yards. He had a touchdown. He had a big run, 20 yards to kind of be the core bit of that yardage gained. Big touchdown run for the only touchdown for the Bengals. No. They missed an extra point. I'm sorry. So, yeah, interesting game, I would say, from the Bengals end. I expected this. I was preaching to start the Chargers defense. I thought there was going to be a lot of rookie mistakes on Burrow. In all honesty, he kind of kept it relatively clean.
The offensive line didn't do him any favors. It looked bad.
It was horrible. I mean, they got a lot of sacks. Joey Bosa was fantastic. I slipped up. It wasn't an extra point. It was 2 field goals. I was reading an interception, not a touchdown. He just looked uncomfortable. And that's really unfortunate because we saw that with Kyler Murray at times last year.
That's exactly how Kyler Murray looked like in his first game, to be honest. Like, Kyler Murray had a big run against the Lions last year that kind of buoyed his fantasy day in that game. But from a throwing perspective, like, to Joe Burrow's credit, they should have won this game. Like, from a real-life NFL perspective, he got him down the field, and A.J. Green made, like, a great catch in the end zone that would have won the game, but he got called for offensive pass interference. And then their kicker pulled his hamstring on the game-tying field goal, and they lost. So, I mean, classic bungles, in my opinion. That's just what Cincinnati Bengals do. But Joe Burrow won them this game. Like, when it mattered most, he looked rattled most of the game, but when it mattered most, he got them down the field, and it looked really good. I think it's very promising if you own Joe Burrow, knowing that this is one of the toughest matchups in the league. Like, their corners are legit. I don't care that Derwin James is out. Their secondary is still one of the best in the league.
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing that's a very good thing to point out for this game, the receiving core, there was a lot of spaced out balls. I think the Auden Tate hype coming in apparently was non-existent today. Boyd only had 4 receptions. Uzama had 4 receptions. A.J. Green had 5. Giovanni Bernard had 4. I mean, Ross had 2. The ball was all over the place. I think that was his goal. And, yeah, there was a lot of situations where he was sacked, so kind of rough for him to even get the ball out. Give props to the Chargers' defensive front 7 because it is really good. Bengals line's terrible. We should expect this consistently. Ball's going to be spread out because it's going to be Burrow doing a lot of back shoulder stuff and 1 foot because rookies will do that, especially under pressure. That's what I'd be expecting. It's going to be a tough season for Burrow, but there was a lot of promise, and I'll be honest, he played very well in this game, even though the stat line kind of looks rough for him.
I don't know if it's going to be a tough season for him. I think he's going to bounce back. I think he got his first welcome to the NFL moment when all of his receivers aren't open because they're getting clamped by Chris Harris Jr. and Casey Hayward. So I think all these matchups that he has coming up, when he has a good matchup, I think he is going to be a smash play because I think we saw what he did with his legs. He's got the rushing ability and he can throw the ball, and he can he obviously did. He fucking threw 60 touchdowns last year in college, but from the Chargers receiving perspective, other than Austin Eckler, real quick, Mike Williams looked really good in this game, like low key. Like he actually looked really good. Like he made a really great, couple really great catches. A couple of them didn't count, but in terms of like that one catch he would have had in the end zone where he had like one hand on it, like that would have been an excellent play.
He had about 2 sideline catches that would have been fantastic that were one-handed. He looked fantastic. His ADP was horrible. People were getting him at an absolute premium. Just a great, kind of 8-point kind of guy. I think he could really turn the page and be more than that. Again, a couple breaks his way where he has a little bit more room. He could have put up a monster game today, and people would be like, Mike Williams is a guy I want to be targeting. Go target him. He's going to be cheap.
Yeah. We're talking about a 24, 25-year-old receiver that put up his first 1,000-yard season last year, too. Like, I know he wasn't, efficient or anything. He only had, 2 touchdowns or 3 touchdowns last year. But man, this guy had 20. He had 1,000 yards as a 24-year-old last year. Like he could just be taking that ascension that we all like want for all of our receivers to take, and he could break into that like 1,200-yard receiver range. Like it wouldn't totally shock me. The guy was a top 10 pick for a reason. Like he obviously has talent. So getting off this game, let's talk quickly about the last game on the slate, which was the Cardinals and 49ers. This game had some concerns due to like air quality or whatever coming into the game. The Arizona Cardinals 24-20 over the reigning NFC champions.
Yeah.
I expect the 49ers to take a step back this year. I've been saying that. I didn't expect the Cardinals to come out and beat them week one. But I do expect the Cardinals to be a feisty team this year, maybe compete for a 7-6 seed in the NFC.
Yeah, they're going to cause problems. This team is built to cause problems. Their offense looks great. Here's my little victory lap because 14 receptions for DeAndre Hopkins when all I was hearing was new wide receivers don't do good in their first year. It's DeAndre Hopkins. I don't give a shit about that take because it doesn't click when he's the best receiver in the league in my eyes because Michael Thomas is a joke.
Julio Jones is the best receiver in the league, in my opinion. But DeAndre Hopkins is in the top three.
Wait, who'd you say?
Julio Jones.
Okay, that's fair. But he's definitely top three. He's going to a new team. He looked fantastic, and Murray was looking for him. Murray really wasn't looking at anyone else. There was two receivers in this game because you can give Fitzgerald a little nod because he had 4 receptions as well, but the ball was going to Hopkins. It was. Kenyon Drake really wasn't involved. Christian Kirk wasn't involved. There's one receiver on this team, and he's going to get peppered. He is going to get peppered. So DeAndre Hopkins, bye, please. I know it may be high. The people riding him probably have him at a good value. But, I mean, this is a team that had a very, very, very good cornerback crew they were kind of facing. Good defense, good pass rush. Everything is good on their defensive end for the 49ers. I wasn't expecting Hopkins to actually do well in this game. I thought this was going to be, okay, I'm just going to sit and tell people, wait for next week, and then he's going to pop off. He did fantastic. He didn't get in the end zone. He didn't need to. He was great. You got all your receptions you needed. Kyler Murray looked really, really good and very good running the ball. And speaking of rushing, we got to talk Edmonds and Drake. I think they're both going to be involved in the backfield, even though there was kind of a large discrepancy between the two when it came to rushing. And I'll give you the floor here because I just rambled for a really long time.
Yeah, that was my take, to be honest. I said this going back to like May, that Kenyon Drake is a good player and he's like assault and I didn't hate him in fantasy. I wasn't drafting a whole lot of him because I thought he was kind of a landmine, a little bit Damian Williams-y from a couple of years ago. But Chase Edmonds is going to be involved, and I think he's going to be – I don't want to say he's going to be a flex play every week, but if it's a really good matchup, he's going to be a flex play. And he's also a great handcuff because we've seen when the starter is out of this backfield that they're willing to give Chase Edmonds all the work. So, yeah, Chase Edmonds needs to be owned. If he's not owned in your league, you definitely want to pick him up. From the 49ers perspective, Raheem Mostert, went bonkers in this game from a receiving perspective, especially, which was a little surprising because I've actually used the words Raheem Mostert is not a good receiving back.
Yeah, I think he just capitalized off a couple good plays for him. I mean, he had 4 receptions. But it did lead the team in receptions tied with Kittle. I think we probably should have expected this. In all honesty, we had Debo was rough with injuries. Ayuk was rough with injuries. Neither of them played today. We should have expected a receiving course. Someone was going to do it. We probably were all thinking McKinnon. He had some work as well, 3 receptions, 20 yards, and a touchdown. But yeah, Raheem Mostert ran wild. That's what won you your league. That's what won you your matchups. If you put him in your lineup, you trusted him. I threw him in a flex spot in a team where I had a lot of good depth at my running back position, so I wasn't going to play him. But I did, and it works out. As far as quarterback play, Jimmy G looked really bad, but at the same time, his stat line doesn't. Welcome to Jimmy Garoppolo. And I think Kyler Murray, although his stats look worse than Garoppolo's, looked much better, much better.
Yeah, and I think it's worth noting that George Kittle did suffer like a hyperextension or something in his knee by the looks of it, and understandably so, had a bad game. I think you kind of just got to say, oh, shit, he got hurt. I don't think he would have had a bad game had he been healthy the whole time. I think he would this is the Cardinals we're talking about. The defense that Tyler, if he had a tight end position next to his name, would have put up a tight end 1 week last year. So I think this is still a good defense to attack for tight ends, but the fact that Kittle got hurt definitely hurt him in this. And I mean, as far as receiving goes, don't go chasing Kendrick Bourne. Seriously, There's no one I want to start in this receiving core ever. Like,
No.
unless Deebo Samuel comes back or Brandon Ayuk comes back, I don't want anyone.
And Debo's not going to for at least 2 more weeks. They put him on the IR. So, yeah, it's a rough situation. But the main thing.
Jerick McKinnon is worth noting. If he is on your waiver wire, I might go pick him up as well because he had 5 targets, 3 receptions, 20 yards, and a touchdown, a couple carries as well. I don't expect him to be like super, super involved. But as long as these receivers are out, I do think he's a guy in an emergency situation. I would have started Jerick McKinnon today over Boston Scott.
Yeah.
And that might sound like a hot take or with like I'm using hindsight or whatever, but no, like I actually would have because I didn't think Boston Scott was getting all the work.
Yeah, that's fair. Do we want to let's go ahead and touch on the Monday games? I think out of the Cardinal game, the main thing is DeAndre Hopkins was fucking mad against a really good defense. I think that's just the biggest thing you'd take from that. And Kyler's legit. We could talk these Monday games. We're currently watching the Cowboys games, but maybe we'll touch on that real quick. Rams are up. They look really, really good. The Cowboys kind of struggling to start. The line looks very much rough, and the defense is letting up a lot of yards. But we'll
Bobby Trees has 5 targets in the first quarter, like at the end of the first quarter. Like the second quarter just started, and Robert Woods already has 5 targets and 4 receptions, 65 yards.
So Steelers and Giants play on today because it's coming out today, Monday, obviously. Steelers and Giants play tonight. What are you kind of expecting out of that? I think it's going to be a tough road for the Giants all game.
I think they're going to get killed, personally. Yeah. I think unless you have Evan Ingram or Saquon Barkley, you sit all the receivers in this game for the Giants because, one, we don't know who to start of the receiving core when it's a good matchup. And this is absolutely not a good matchup. You have TJ Watt and Bud Dupree against 2 rookie tackles for the Giants. That is not going to end well. It's probably going to mean 5, 6, 7 sacks for the Steelers defense. You could fire them up, by the way. And a couple forced fumbles, maybe a pick or 2. Like, this is probably going to be an ugly one for the Giants.
Yeah, I have to agree. I don't really know if I see the Steelers kind of running them offensively, but I think this is a game where we're going to see.
It might only be 15 to 7 or something, but like I think the Steelers are going to have like a defensive touchdown or like they might just they might be finding their footing on offense, but the Giants, I don't expect them to get much going at all, including Saquon too.
Yeah, I think Saquon will struggle, in all honesty. I think they're just going to be pinched, and they're going to get to a point where they just got to pass, and that's going to be a bad situation when that's it.
Yep.
I think what you can take out of this is Tuesday morning or maybe Monday night, maybe not Monday night during the game.
Vander Esch is already hurt. Unfortunate for him, but, I mean, it's kind of been the story of his career already, to be honest.
So Monday, what you can kind of expect don't do it Monday night because it makes it sound like you're trying to take the advantage of the sad Giant fan or whoever in your league has Barkley and these kind of guys. But kind of look for a cheapened price on some of these Giants players because it's going to be a really rough.
Let me ask you something right now.
Go ahead.
After this game, would you flip Josh Jacobs for Saquon Barkley?
If I could, yes.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah. If I could, I would. I'd do it quick.
I think I would too, but I'm wondering if the Saquon owner would actually do that.
Yeah, that's the thing. You'd have to find someone who's kind of in a rough spot. Maybe you'd have to throw in sweeteners. I think it's just going to happen.
Yeah.
There's just a difference. But Josh Jacobs, we've talked a lot.
I think we're going to expect this from a weekly basis. Like, I actually think this is going to happen a lot because people that were saying Josh Jacobs wasn't going to get the receiving work because of Devontae Booker and like Theo Riddick, like half those guys didn't even make the team. One of them got traded to the Dolphins. They're like, Josh Jacobs is the guy in this offense. Like, he was going to be the guy, and betting on super talented players, the most elusive player in PFF history, according to their things, as a rookie last year, it's never going to end well. Like, betting on really good players doesn't end well usually. So the fact that a lot of people were off Josh Jacobs at his price, I didn't really get it, to be honest, because I'm like, why are you betting on such a great player? Yeah. And it was always the first thing of their arguments. It was always, well, I don't really like betting on really good players, but it's like Lynn Bowden's there. It's like, what the hell are you talking about? Yeah.
All right. Well, Steelers, any guy you want to mention there, or do we want to jump to the next game?
I think Deontay Johnson's a smash play because according to PFF, James Bradbury is going to be on Juju Smith-Schuster, and Logan Ryan is their other like decent corner who's got slot corner. So I would say if Juju's not in the slot, then James Washington will be on James Bradbury. So Isaac Yiadom is the projected start matchup for Deontay Johnson, and he's going to kill him.
Yeah, I think the best game of Monday by far, because I really think that Steelers-Giants game is just going to be
a slugfest.
it's not going to be fun. The Titans and Broncos. I think it's a really fun game. I think we get to see Judy kind of take.
I think he's gonna blow up the screen. I think he's actually gonna come out because this is the dude. Like, let's not forget that Jerry Jeudy. Yes, he's a rookie receiver, and yes, there was no preseason. And I said this in my sleepers video that went bonkers. Thank you guys again for all the support on that video. But this was the most pro-ready receiver in the draft. Like, this dude was a pro receiver as a freshman. Like, he was polished. He was that. Who was that? Is that Zeke? Yeah, Zeke just ran receiving touchdown. He's pulling his shirt up. Classic Zeke. Anyway, Jerry Jeudy with Cortland Sutton. If Cortland Sutton's limited or out, I expect Jerry Jeudy to go nuts in this game.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what we're going to expect. A limited role at best. I think Derrick Henry's going to go pretty insane. I think the two quarterbacks are going to do their jobs. This is going to be a really fun one to watch fantasy-wise. It's unfortunate that that's the late game, but it is. I'm
really curious to see how my Jonnu Smith take turns out in week 1 because he was my guy. Like at the tight end position, he's the dude I own everywhere. He's the dude I have him ranked as a top 8 tight end going into the year. I think Jonnu is like, if he's bad, it's not a great matchup against the Broncos defense, but I want to see him at least get like 6 or 7 targets.
Yeah, the Titans. Where was I going with this? Oh, I completely lost my.
AJ Brown's going to go off, by the way, because AJ Boye is not shadowing him, and he's going to see a lot of. I believe Deontay Harris is his primary matchup, and he's not a terrible corner, Deontay Harris, but AJ Brown's a stud, so he's probably going to kill him.
So the Titans have very, very good run stuff. So it's going to be interesting to see the Lindsey Gordon situation. I think that's a situation where it's like, maybe not judge it, maybe not decide who's the guy you want in fantasy this week.
The receiving is what I'm curious to see. If Lindsey gets 7 targets and Gordon gets 1, I'm going to be concerned. If it's the other way around, that's kind of what I expected.
Yeah. So that's kind of what we're going to be looking at. Bunch of fun matchups. We hope you enjoyed this video. Smash the like for the boys.
Yep. And make sure you guys are joining the Discord. It's popping like usual. Comment any of your thoughts down below. Leave it, like, even if you don't even want to comment, just leave I don't want to comment on your stupid videos down there, because you know what, it helps us for SEO purposes. So thank you for your hateful comments about certain things that I got wrong, because I'm sure I got a lot of things wrong. And if you drafted Austin Eckler because of me, I'm sorry that he only got 1 target. It's not my fault. Anyway, subscribe to the channel if you guys are new, and hit the bell icon because we post videos pretty much every day. Take it easy, guys, and enjoy your Monday.